I always ran into this problem where I'd think, I want this object lit this way, but where do I put the light? I've had the idea for Light Painter for quite a while. I think it was probably a year or so before I actually started and showed people Light Painter. In business, every solution revolves around a problem, right? And a pain point for users, the pain that the users are trying to solve. To me, the pain point for Light Painter is lighting an object when you don't know where the light should go. Especially if you're a beginner, especially if you're coming to 3D art from 2D. In 3D, you kind of have to work backwards from the end result to decide, okay, where is the location, where is the rotation of the light? And then that will apply to your end result. Whereas with 2D, you kind of can just focus on the end result. Obviously, you have to make an environment and light that environment to justify how you're lighting your character or prop. But in 3D, you have to kind of always have that 3D space in the back of your mind. Whenever I thought about this, I thought there's gotta be a solution for this. There has to be something that exists that's already doing this. There's no way that this is just a brand new idea, because that's also another thing to think about with business, is that you have to assume that someone else already has had the idea, or the idea has already come out. If you think of a business idea and you think this has not existed anywhere else, I have not seen anyone else do this, you have to ask yourself why that is, because the chances that someone has already thought of it and for some reason decided not to, and there may be a good reason for that. So I looked around. There was some similar ideas with image-based painting, like where you're using textures or procedural images as the light source. Curtis Holt has done this with his light painting videos from a while back. After my first promo video, someone did mention that Maya actually has something like this called Place Highlight, and Blender even actually has something like this hidden in a keyboard shortcut. And so it did exist. But it was only over a specific point, and I wanted it to be able to draw over a surface and take that whole surface into account. Since this idea did exist in some form, that did justify to me that having this light painter would be useful to people, so I started implementing. So I looked into some ideas. Most of them didn't scale well. I didn't want this to be based on AI or even noise. I didn't want it to be a random solution, which there are some that are out there where it kind of just randomizes the light positions. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be deterministic of the user draws this, they always get this light position out. I knew that instead of just waiting until that perfect solution came, I decided to just start with the simplest solution, which would be taking what the user drew, converting those into vertices, and just offsetting them from the surface. That was the initial video. So I shared this video. It was mainly meant to get a reaction from social media. I wanted to get feedback of, is this interesting? Does this already exist? Which I already mentioned that a couple things did. So I only got a few hundred views out of it as a YouTube short and Instagram, but the feedback was positive when it did come back. So I continued. Worked on more features, mesh planes. So instead of just tubes, it makes it into a convex shape. Then I also supported Blender's lamp objects as well, because I wanted this to support Eevee. That was one of the big questions when I did release the video was, would this support Eevee? So with lamp objects, there's a few lamp types. There's point lamp, which just shoots light in all directions equally. The nice thing with that is that you don't have to take any rotation into account, it's just the position. So I take those points, I project them as a flat surface, because you could draw them on all sides. So it basically just flattens it and then takes the center of that flattened surface. That's where the point goes. The spot lamp is a little different. So, because you have to take the location and the direction into account. So it does the same thing with the center, flattens it, takes the center of that. Rotation, so it takes the average direction of the surface and converts the vector into a rotation. Now, another thing with spot lamps that's a little different is the angle, because with spot lamps you can change the angle of how spread out the spot lamp is. Basically what I had to do is I had to take the direction of the spot lamp where it's going, so from the new center to the center of all the vertices originally. Then I had to take the angle of that vector and the vector from the new center to the farthest point. So if you drew a bunch of points, takes the farthest away point and the new center. You take the angle of those two lines, and that's your new spot angle. And then area lamps. Ugh. Area lamps bring back memories. That took a long time to figure out, because it's not just the position and rotation, but it's also the size of the area lamp, because it has a length and width to it. So I take the points, flatten it, rotate it up so it's flat on the X and Y axis, rotate it again for the box so it's straight along the X and Y axes, and then take the dimensions. And so, with all the lamp objects supported now, I made my second video, and I loved that it was kind of a workflow of like how someone would be using it. And I really like videos that are like that it feels more like a demo versus saying features, like it's demonstrating what it is. That video got 10 times as many views as the first one. Still Instagram, still YouTube Shorts. That short still has nearly as many views as my currently top videos, like long form videos. The last thing I added before releasing Light Painter was sky textures. So when I started doing sky textures and sun lamps and testing it with terrains, I started noticing some issues. Firstly, when it came to the direction of the sun or sky, it was just taking the average. The problem is when you're trying to light an environment, the best angle, or usually the average angle, usually comes out to straight up. just noonday lighting, which it does light everything, but it's not interesting. It's not a dynamic lighting setup. It always just came out to straight up, and I wanted to limit or prevent that. The second problem was the average angle, which could be straight up or slightly to the side. It doesn't guarantee that that area is lit. So I couldn't just do an average. I had to actually test if it would be hit by said sun or sky. I decided to make a occlusion based method. This kind of takes a little bit of inspiration from my EnView add-on. Let's say the given direction for the average is this. Basically what I do, take a sample of points, and so it would literally just send rays in those different directions. If it didn't hit anything, then that would be the assumption that the sun would hit it from that angle. So testing high angle, didn't hit anything, so we're good there. Low angle, oh, it hit the wall, we're not gonna use that one. So not only did I test angles this way, but also in 180 degrees towards each direction, like a hemisphere. It's not fully hemisphere, it's like a quarter hemisphere, half a hemisphere. And so it'd be sampling lots of different directions and test if it hits anything or not. And then it would give it a score. It would give it a score based on if it hits something, it would also based on how close it is to the target average normal. So that would be how it chooses the direction. That is my nerdy explanation of occlusion, occlusion testing. So I shared my next video with environments. Making that video, it felt different because with the other lamp objects is more for like studio setups and kind of specific to characters or props and very small scale lighting. But in this case, it was an environment. It was a landscape. I did not expect this to be used for environments at all. So with that, I decided, since all those main things are supported, that Light Painter is ready to release, but I didn't really know how to release it. I already sold paid add-ons. I currently sell paid add-ons. I could have just sold this one too. But for some reason, even after talking with others that encouraged putting it on Blender Market to sell, it just felt weird. But when I turned to inspiration, there was a video in particular that inspired me, particularly Ton's interview with Andrew Price from a few years ago. I'll share the clip.
How did you go from pursuing the money to then suddenly going like, everything is free? What was, did something change in your...
No, but I was never interested in money. Money doesn't mean anything. It's not interesting. Mm-hmm. I call myself a maker. I want to make stuff. Whether that's software or 3D or designs or building teams or companies, or I want to make stuff. That's my passion. And the money is a means. And sometimes you need it to do something big. You don't have to work, make money, and then you can do something with it. But the real satisfaction is in making something.
It resonated with me. I did just want to make this. I just wanted it to be a common tool, common solution. And As Ton said, once it becomes about money, it's hard to see it as anything but. Sometimes a paid product does make sense. I've released a paid product since then, but this one didn't feel right. So on April 1st of 2023, I uploaded Light Painter for the first time publicly on GitHub with a GPL license for anyone to use. And there have been many more changes to Light Painter since it's been released. I added a lot of different things, namely flags, which cast shadows from selected lamp objects. I love that one. Inspired by one of Ian Hubert's videos. Relative power values, so the apparent brightness stays the same regardless of how far away the light is. Actually, it was inspired by this from Andrew Price's free lighting course on YouTube. Moving the UI from the side panel to a pie menu, moving from that pie menu to the tools on the left side, quick gobos generation, and unit tests, and documentation, and fixing many bugs. It happens. What a crazy time for me to make Light Painter. I was already working on renovating, redoing, practically rewriting Enview. I was making an animated short during that year. That was like one of my big goals. I had a baby by the end of the year. It was so validating to not just see people promoting it, but people just using the tool. And there was someone that made their own tutorial for me. I'm bad at making my own promos and tutorials usually, and someone made one. And of course, I had a sponsorship with Curtis Holt where I shared Light Painter as well. In short, it does mean a lot to me that you guys shared so much about this add-on and how much you love it. Thank you. It means a lot to me that you guys take the time to listen to me on the internet, just like with anyone else. I feel like I've popped up in a lot of different places on the internet with Blender as well as other things, and I feel like it's just funny to see how people find me in different ways at this point. But for those of you who found me with Light Painter, thank you. And for all of you and everyone else, happy blending. Quick outro, if you want free add-ons, a lot of my free add-ons are hosted on GitHub, but I decided to make it easier to access all in one place. So I made my own extensions repository for Blender. So if you have Blender 4.2, you can just connect to the repo and download all of my extra free utility add-ons. So if you want those free add-ons, link in the description.